Hi, Danville. Alan Shields here, Chief of Police, and we are 10-8 and in service, and we are here to make people's lives better by safeguarding the lives, rights, and property of everyone we serve. For the last few weeks, we've been going over the Town Council update. This, along with all of our annual reports, can be found online on the Chief's website for the police department. So feel free to jump over there. Lots of good information in there. And we've got a pretty good show. So we're going to talk about the blotter like we normally do. We're going to cover catalytic converter thefts again because they're continuing to happen. But it's important for all of you to know what it is that we're doing about it and what you can do to continue to help with reducing the number of those thefts. And then we're going to talk about a fraud where someone's actually pretending to be the police. All right, first off, let's see. We're trying to encourage you all to go to the FEMA All Hazards website and download their checklist. This is very good in order for all of you to get information on how you can be prepared should significant events that rarely occur happen, such as a power outage, earthquake. We did just have that 5.1. So if you want to know how to be prepared ahead of that and then how to help so that you can survive during it, that is a very, very good guide. Along with that, we have a wildfire preparedness and evacuation guide. And then our community warning system, you have to opt in for those alerts. So make sure you are ready to opt in for those alerts. The other thing, this is a live show. So this is something that if you have a question, throw it in the chat. I will try to answer it during the chat. And if I cannot, I'll make sure to get you an answer later. And I'll just type it into the chat so you can get that. All right, on to our blotter, communitycrimeapp.com. This is where you can get all of the information from our dispatch center. We upload several times a day. You can also set alerts, and you can get information on 290 registrants there. Before we go there, how about this? If you want to actually see us live, come out on Friday night. We're going to do football with force. That doesn't mean we're going to play football. That just simply means we're going to be out there after the football game. And we're going to be at Foster's Freeze at 180 Harts Avenue. And the whole idea behind that is we want to be where people are already at and give them an opportunity to engage with us in like a non-enforcement environment and just be there and answer any questions that people may have. So it's a good opportunity to join us and come out and see us in person and ask those questions. All right, so the blotter, October 17th through the 23rd. I'm going to split the blotter up into two segments. The first one's going to be all other crime besides catalytic converter thefts, and then I'll cover the catalytic converter thefts so you can see specifically where those are occurring. On the 17th, and I don't know what it is with the bags of candy, but someone came in and stole a bunch of bags of candy from Smart and Final. And then on the 17th, we had a couple other crimes. We had a vehicle stolen from a States Drive. It was later recovered in Oakland, and we were able to, just as a matter of process, so you understand how we handle these. When we recover a vehicle, even if it's in another jurisdiction, we're actually going to send detectives or officers out there to try to process and swab that vehicle for DNA. So not only do we want to get your property back, but we want to make every attempt to hold that person accountable that took the property. So know that those are the lengths that your officers will go to in order to make you whole again after you've been a victim of crime. Again, so we had alcohol stolen from Costco on the 17th. On the 19th, someone went into one of our salon supply stores and stole a bunch of clippers. And then on the 20th, a bunch of liquor bottles were stolen from Foz. And then on the 23rd, someone stole a bunch of phones from inside the AT&T store. They pretended to pay and then left with the phones without actually making a payment. But I did want to cover. Let me go over the cat converters here real quick. So if you look at the circles here in red, this is where the catalytic converters thefts were reported to have occurred. Really on two dates, the 17th and the 19th. On the 17th, we had one, and that was the only one in that downtown area. The rest of them are the three circles you see out in central Danville. And one was on the 700 block of Park Hill, so that's on the north side of Communota or Sycamore Valley Road. We had one on the 300 block of Parizo, that's on the south side, kind of by Osage Park area. And then we had two on the 1000 block of El Capitan. So that's a little bit further away from Osage as you go down El Capitan towards Crow Canyon Road. So a lot of them there, but more importantly is what is your police department doing to work on these? And so I kind of wanted to do a case study on one that sometimes they take a little bit of time to solve, but we get there. And this one happened actually on Christmas. So December 25th, 2021, so this is last year, someone had their catalytic converter cut. And if you haven't seen what it looks like when one's missing, I know We've shown them on the show before where you actually see the catalytic converter. But this is the underside of that car, and this is what you can where you can see how they cut the pipe. And a neighbor actually heard the sound of metal cutting, went out and said, "I'm calling 911." The people fled in a car, and when our officers got there, they actually saw this cigarette butt underneath the car. They took pictures of it. They collected it carefully. We had it processed for DNA. Our detectives got involved. We were able to get a hit on DNA. We were able to identify the person that did it, interviewed him, and then ultimately referred that case to the DA's office for prosecution. So, great job, one, by the resident saying, "I see something," and then two, our officers going out there and just doing good police work, and then working with our crime lab to get those DNA hits back. So we will work hard to solve your cases. And sorry, let me actually throw the slide up. So here in the upper left, you can see the cut pipe, and in the lower left, you can see the other side of that cut pipe, and then there's a picture of the cigarette butt on the floor there. And on the 12th, so that's the one arrest side. The other one is how do we prevent these from happening before they happen? So if you remember, I covered this before, but on the 11th, September 11th, a neighbor saw someone breaking into one of their neighbor's cars. They were able to scare the people away, give a description of the vehicle. We looked it up in our flock, our license plate camera system. We were able to flag that car as a known thief. And they came back the very next night, and they came back with the I Still Catalytic Converter starter pack of a jack to jack up your car, some bolt cutters to cut off anything that may be in the way. If you can see, there's a bunch of drill or saw blades there for a sawzall, and you can see a battery powered sawzall there as well. And so our officers were able to make an arrest for probation violation and get those folks off the street. Do we know they were absolutely going to commit a catalytic converter theft that night? We don't know, but certainly they had the means to do it, and they were in an area where we know catalytic converters have been getting stolen. So, kudos to the neighbor again. We've got this is how we solve so many crimes. We've got great neighbors that are good witnesses. We've got excellent officers and detectives that do a great job of following up on these crimes. So we've talked about this before, but is there something you can do to prevent your catalytic converter from being stolen? And one is park it in the garage, keep it in an area that's well lit. The other you can do is actually have this piece installed. And there were actually a lot of times on the chat, last time we brought this up, catalytic converter shield, there were a lot of you that actually said, yeah, hey, I had a mechanic install it. It wasn't a big deal. It's a few $100s up to maybe $500 to get it installed, at least from what all of you said. And so this is a good way to help prevent your catalytic converter from being stolen. But we've covered it before on the crime triangle, and I just want to talk about it. There's really three things that have to be present in order for that crime to occur. You have to have the motivated offender, and we know they're creeping around. We know they're creeping around. And you have to have a target, that is your car, and you have to have an environment. And so that's the driveway, the parking lot. And frankly, D'Angelo, you all do an excellent job at keeping your yards kept, keeping motion lights and cameras and all those things. So you're doing a phenomenal job at working the environment. This is one where if you have the means or the opportunity to maybe store that car that we know is a target for the Toyota Prius, this seems to be the most prevalent one right now. If you can put that somewhere where it's least likely to be seen, so in a garage, that's actually the best way to keep that vehicle safe. The next best thing to harden the target is to put a catalytic converter shield on. Now, that first leg, I always tell you, it's the hardest to control. It's the hardest variable, the motivated offender. It doesn't mean that we do nothing. So what our investigation supervisor is doing is he's actually going out and he's having officers scheduled at times sporadically throughout the evening to work specifically on this, to work to identify people that are coming into town or already in town wanting to commit this crime. So we do have some flexibility with how we do our staffing model that allows us to do kind of targeted and directed enforcement to try to get those folks that are out committing those crimes. All right, let me see. Again, in the chat, if you have a question, just throw it in and I'll work hard to answer it on the show. If not, I'll answer it afterwards. Sue makes a comment. She says, I am so bummed the academy is over. Sue, we're bummed the academy is over too because you were bringing some great treats and we very much appreciated those. Sue is one of our recent graduates from our Police Citizens Academy. We hold it twice a year. We hold it in the spring and the fall. So the next one starts in April. And it's 7 weeks where we open our doors, we introduce you to our officers, and we show you what it is we do, why we do it, and we even bring you out to the driving range and those sort of things. But the reality is, we're just trying to show you what it is we do. We're trying to be as transparent as we possibly can so you know how your police department works to safeguard the lives, the rights, and the property of everyone that we serve. So, Sue, we do miss you. There was a comment at our last Citizens Academy when we asked, what can we do better? And they said, can you have like reunions or bring them back? And so, Stu, one of your classmates brought it up, and I think we're going to work with Lindsay to make sure that we schedule that and make that happen. So we are going to work at that. Maybe she can be a repeat attender. Gary, that does happen sometimes, but we try to leave the slots for those that are new. That doesn't mean you can't stop by and say hi or join us at one of our coffee with the cops events, but we try to save that. So Gary, I'm looking at my Shake app is excellent. I was traveling on 24 and it warned me loud and clear. So what Gary's talking about, and I've not personally downloaded or looked at this, but there is an app you can get that gives you, I believe, a few seconds head start on an earthquake, and it's an app that you can download and it'll send an alert to your phone regarding an earthquake. Gary, if you don't mind, I'm kind of curious. Did you get the alert and then feel the earthquake, or did you get the alert and then find out the earthquake happened? And then if you got it and felt it, what was the time in between, if you estimated? And Yuri's making a comment on the theft of candy that they needed candy for Halloween. I don't know that anybody needs that much candy with all the candy going on. Nelson Bostrom asks, "What are y'all doing about the endless speeding and stop sign running in Danville?" Uh, Nelson will tell you that we are writing increasing more tickets. Generally, tickets fall under the umbrella of enforcement. We've got two officers now on motorcycles that you'll see out and about on the street. You've got another one in a car, and then all of our officers carry the obligation to do enforcement in their beat. Um, what I'll ask is Nelson, if you can pinpoint it a little bit. I know that we tend to say these problems are broad and wide, and they happen all the time, and they happen everywhere all at once. But I don't have the slide to put up, but we do. Sometimes we'll go out and we'll do analysis, and we'll look at an area, and we'll use. I talked about our radar signs, and they'll actually tell us the speed of every car that goes by, and they'll note the date, day of the week, and time of that violation or that transaction. I guess that speed, and then they'll aggregate that data and tell us when the most violations are occurring. And the example I'll give is logically on Pariso Drive, I would assume we would get the most speeders in the morning because that's when people are going to work. And we'd get them in that westbound direction as they go to work. So from the houses to the freeway. When we looked at the data for westbound traffic only, it actually showed that we got the most speeders between, I think, 7 and 9 o'clock at night. And so what we do is we then go and we target where we think we're going to get the most amount of speeders and have the most impact on those. The other thing we do is we actually take tips straight from people like you that say, this is what's happening. And so, Nelson, what I'd ask you to do, just throw a little note in here and say, I see speeding, stop lines, stop light, or stop sign violations at this time at this location. And if it's Camino Ramon at Franciscan all day long, I can work with that too. But try to narrow it down a little bit for us. We'll make sure we get enforcement to that area. All right. What about positioning plant vehicles, Toyota and or Hondas? So Gary, frankly, we're trying to get our hands on a Toyota Prius right now, and we're going to throw a track on it and see if we can get that going. So that is a great idea. It's one we're trying to work on logistics. We're trying to work that part out. Okay, so Virginia Farr says, please talk about pedestrian safety as well. There has been 11 pedestrians hit by cars in the East Bay in the last 2 months, including a 6-year-old today, a 14-year-old last week. Most of these have been legally crossing in sidewalks. The Freedom to Walk bill may make illegal crossings more frequent and increase the risk. Virginia, actually, I'm trying to work with our transportation manager, Andy Dillard, And I think we're going to come up with some good points, and we're going to start with an education campaign on that. Generally speaking, when it comes to pedestrian safety, I think there's an obligation on both sides that sometimes gets missed, and that is the obligation of the pedestrian, even though there's a crosswalk, to actually pay attention and make sure they're not entering a crosswalk when there is traffic in the road. Even though there's a crosswalk, it doesn't give that pedestrian the right to just blindly walk out into the road when there's traffic. The same side, when there's a car coming and a pedestrian is in the crosswalk, they have an obligation to yield to the pedestrian in the crosswalk. So we are working on it. I do want to work on something a little more comprehensive than just shooting from the hip during the middle of a show. So we will work on something, and we're actually going to build either one, maybe two, maybe even three segments on traffic safety in general. So please keep tuning in and look for that to come because we will talk about that. Okay, looking through some of the. Okay, so Nelson says Osage Park area. I live on El Cap and watch cars doing 45 all day long. Okay. Okay, so I live right near there, so that's not a hard problem for me to watch. Watch cars do 45 all day long, work from home. Okay, so I will look at that, Nelson. So the Osage South area, I'm assuming you mean basically from Camino Ramon to like Greenbrook, kind of that stretch. So we'll look at that. In fact, what I'll do is I wrote a note. We'll throw one of our speed signs out there, and we'll come back with data, and we'll also throw officers out there as well. I'll let the officers work that area as well as the traffic team know to provide extra enforcement there. So Nelson, thank you very much for putting a fine point on that. Yuri, great question. So this is Yuri is another one of our academy graduates, so you can tell I think he's feeding me the good information to say here. Yuri says, "Are you coordinating the investigation of catalytic converter thefts with San Ramon and other police departments?" Yes, Yuri, we are. So we work with, and I've spoken about this in the past, but we work in various groups. So our investigators talk to other investigators in the area. Our patrol officers talk to patrol officers, and then our chiefs meet regularly. We meet once a month for the county, and then every quarter for the Tri Valley. This is something that we do work with and we coordinate, and not only that, but we pass information. That's the most valuable thing we can do. And not to get into the technical side or the details of it, but we've got different channels that we can share information rapidly. So if something happens in San Ramon and it's reported quickly, then Danville and our Valley Station units in Lafayette and all these Bay Area agencies can start finding out that information so they can be on the lookout. So we're trying to work and adapt to that, but we do coordinate with those other police departments. Okay, so Gary, it looks like Gary's saying that he got the, the alert in the earthquake app. Didn't feel anything, but then got it later, 2 minutes later on the other. So Nelson, El Cap, and Orange Blossom, I know that intersection well. Sue's helping put a finer point on that with El Capitan towards Camino Ramon. And Virginia's looks like she's punctuating that one as well. So thank you. So this helps, right? If it's one person saying, hey, this is what I see, there's credibility there. But when there's three people saying, hey, this is what we're seeing, it allows us to go out and be a little more assertive with our enforcement. Okay. All right. So let's move on to the next. So the next one is we've had someone that has been consistently calling all day long, different people that have Danville related phone numbers. We've gotten calls from Palm Springs saying, "Hey, someone called and said that they one of your one of your sergeants, and that I would have a warrant for my arrest," and those sort of things. And that was a Danville resident that had since moved down there but hadn't lived there for years. And so I want to remind everybody there's two things that a fraudster will try to do. They'll try to be legitimate. So this is where they pretend to be the police. Maybe they pretend to be like a family member, lottery, commission person saying you've won. So once they can create that sense of legitimacy, like the grandson who's getting thrown in jail in another country or whose car broke down, once they create the legitimacy and you buy into it, the very next thing they need to do is create a sense of urgency to try to separate you from your money. So I want to assure you right now, the Danville Police Department is not calling anyone saying you have a warrant for your arrest if you don't make this payment. We may call someone and say you have a warrant for your arrest, right? That has happened. We visit homes and tell people, hey, you have a warrant for your arrest for this crime you did. The easy way to get through that is if you hadn't committed a crime, you probably don't have a warrant for your arrest, right? But if you don't know, like in this case, it was for jury duty. So if you don't know, tell them thank you, hang the phone up, and call us directly. And we had several people doing that. So that's a good sign. It frustrates me that we're getting these calls because someone is trying to steal your money. So that is frustrating. What's not frustrating is the fact that immediately after receiving those calls, residents are calling us and saying, "Hey, I received this call. Is this legitimate?" That means that all of you are doing a great job at not being a victim. So I want to play this call for you. You might have already heard it because I did throw it out on Facebook and YouTube. Listen to this call and tell me if you would have taken the bait and find the points and put it in the chat about what he was doing to create legitimacy and what he was doing to create urgency.
Hi, this is Sergeant Jacob Bell with the Danville Police Department. This message is from Mr. Please contact me back immediately upon receiving this message, sir. I have documentation that's been forwarded to my department here that requires your immediate attention today. My direct number is 925-302-3514. I repeat, that's 925-302-3514. Again, so this requires your immediate attention, otherwise it will be forwarded to the criminal division and executed criminally tomorrow, sir. Again, this is Sergeant Jacob Bell, Danville Police Department, 925-302-3514. I'll be here at the police department a little bit less than an hour more. Thank you.
All right, so you can spot he was being assertive, respond immediately. He actually appeared to probably have gone onto our website or in some other way found out who was assigned here. I've had people pretend to be me. A lot of times they usually pick our investigation supervisor because that's someone that's a little higher up in our food chain. They're in a specialized unit. And so it creates even a better sense of legitimacy. But the great thing is none of you guys fall for this stuff, or rarely do people fall for this stuff. So Sue is cracking me up right now. So Sue picked up on something. And it's a lot of times it's the little things that we hear that make us wonder, but we don't always put a point on it. And Sue asks, is there a Danville, Texas? Because clearly the person has an accent that is a little irregular to the area. And that on its own doesn't mean that it's not a legitimate call. But coupled with everything else, it should be an overwhelming amount of evidence that this is a not legitimate call. Now, what do we do in these cases? We do attempt to locate the person. So when you call in, we take that phone number and we try to locate it. But there are some ways that you can spoof a phone number that won't allow us to backtrack them. So there are some times that we can follow up on these and actually catch the person doing it. We take it a little bit personal when they're pretending to be us and dupe you. That's not great. But we do make an effort. So it is important that if you get one of these calls that you do call us, provide us with the number, and let us do some follow-up on those cases. And certainly if you feel like you're being, whether it's legitimate, you feel it's legitimate or not, it's always good to call us. We get these types of scams during like natural disasters, like the fires. We were seeing them. People pretend to be from some agency, Red Cross, some made up fire relief agency, and they try to get you to quickly get rid of your money. You can always call us and we can help to confirm the legitimacy of those agencies as well. I'd rather spend some time on the front end preventing the crime from happening than seeing you get duped out of money. Now, I have seen it in the past where these have been successful. It's usually the lottery ones that are uber successful, but all the way up to $120,000, $130,000, right? So they can be very successful, and that's why they throw so many calls out there. All right, so it doesn't look like there is anything else in the chat, but Gary does make a good comment. He says, forward to the criminal department. We don't have a criminal department. We tend to use specific language, investigations unit, traffic unit. Like we do have special units here. So good. That was a good call. So Carol is saying that she got one about jury duty, and it took me a second to realize it was fraud. That's right, because you can get letters saying, "Hey, you missed jury duty," right? So that's something, and what's I think good about that good from the criminal perspective, is if someone said you have a warrant for your arrest for pick your crime, right? Well, you would know. You'd be like, "Well, I never robbed a bank. Like that can't be me. I wouldn't have a warrant. I'm not paying any money for that." But jury duty, like we all get jury summons, and who's to say that our mail wasn't stolen, lost? Maybe we put it by the microwave and didn't look at it. So there's this off chance that that might be legitimate, right? But the process that they're following isn't, because we would never ask for money in place of this warrant. Um, so this is good job on your part, Carol. Way to follow that. All right, so that is all we have. We are going to be 10:10, but I do want to, and please put it in the chat if you've downloaded either one of these. I really want to know, because I want to know not only if you downloaded it, but if you've viewed one of these and what you think about them. But we have these FEMA checklists. We have our the all hazards guide, and then we have our wildfire guide. And I want to know what you think about them. Give us some criticism on that. But the how to stay safe and the all hazards guide, I mean, that is just a wonderful guide that really helps out, and we think is useful. If you want to be alerted, we do use Nixle fairly frequently here, but we also use the community warning system. The community warning system by the sheriff's office is the one in conjunction with Nixle that we will be using if there is a wildfire, some significant disaster. It does not get used frequently throughout the year. We reserve it for very, very important events. So you know that if you sign up for this and you're getting an alert, it's a very significant event. All right. So with that, thank you again for joining us. Please like if you're on YouTube, subscribe to our channel. Our subscribers are pretty low, and they're creeping up a little bit. But like our page, subscribe, hit the notification bell, make sure that you get these notices, and forward this to any friends that you think might be interested. And that way we keep this show going. Good night, Danville.